Billy Todd looked at the world around him, feeling as if he were on the outside of a glass menagerie looking in. Smoke still rose from several places around the small town, but he knew no one was going to be putting out any fires. There was no one left to put them out. Clutching his rifle, Billy walked across the street, careful to keep his eyes open for feral dogs. Funny, he thought, how it took centuries to domesticate the dog, and only a few weeks for him to revert to wild animal. Of course, not being fed would do that to you, he allowed. The virus had swept across the globe like a whirlwind. It had happened so fast that no one had even bothered to name it. There hadn't been time, Billy figured. 1 minute everything was fine, then it wasn't. Plague. That had been the word most people had used in the few short days where anyone had been talking about it. In what had seemed like a few short hours, the power had gone out and other utilities, such as water and gas, had quickly followed. Television stations kept broadcasting for a few more hours, gradually falling silent as the people running them fell sick and died. Radio stations had stayed on the air using generators for another day or so, being more closed, more isolated. But they, too, in the end, had gone silent. Billy had hid in his small apartment, using carefully hoarded food and water, waiting for help to come. None had come, for anyone. The last reports he had heard had claimed the death toll worldwide had climbed into the billions. Billy could scarcely credit that number. It was hard for him to imagine, impossible to imagine. William Conrad Billy Todd was a small-town mechanic. Born and raised in Cedar Bend, he'd never been further than Nashville in his entire 25 years. His world revolved around cars and the small farm he had inherited when his parents had passed away 2 years before. He'd never really done anything with the farm, being too occupied with his job as a mechanic. He had made good money fixing cars for people. With the economy in the tank, more and more people were fixing the problems with their older vehicles, driving them longer. And Billy was the top mechanic in the whole county. Everyone said so. Had said so. There was no one left in Cedar Bend to say anything now, so far as Billy knew. This was the 4th day he had dared venture outside the small apartment in the rear of his shop. The 4th day in a row that he had prowled the area around his garage, seeing no sign of life outside of animals. Apparently only humans were affected by the virus, but for some reason that Billy simply could not credit, he had not fallen ill. He couldn't imagine why. There had to be a reason, he figured. Things just didn't happen for no reason. One of the silliest things people told him when they brought their cars in for repair was, it stopped for no reason. There was always a reason. Billy was very good at finding those reasons and fixing them. But he couldn't find the reason for his still being alive when everyone else was dead. Billy knew he wasn't anything special, never had been. He wasn't the smartest or the strongest, the fastest, wasn't the best looking. In fact, he wasn't the best at anything except fixing cars. Somehow he didn't think he'd be fixing many cars for a while.